There's a Mexican right there. What's up, everyone? Today is the day I start on the big brake kit on the truck. So got to do some rearranging with vehicles so I can actually get stuff out of the way. I'll turn the truck around and back it in here. We'll start on the rear, get those rear brakes done first, and then we'll move on to the front, possibly tomorrow. But I'll get as far as I can tonight, and we'll go from there. As far as, so I mean, you guys, if you guys watched the video of me painting the calipers, you saw the front calipers already. So they are, and on the thumbnail, I guess, they are the monoblock fixed caliper that's going in the front, and we're going from, I think it's like an 11 or 12 inch rotor that for the factory brakes, and it's a 2-piston caliper. It's a floating caliper. I'll actually measure all of this stuff when I'm actually changing it out so we can see kind of what we're going from and to. And I think the new one is like a 13.5 inch rotor, and it is a fixed 4-piston caliper. So that's gonna be a huge improvement. For the rear calipers, I'm actually changing to the SS Silverado calipers. So I'm going from a single piston rear to a dual piston rear. So that's a lot more brake back there as well. As far as I know, the rotor is the same size, but or the same diameter, but it is a thicker rotor. So it'll deal with heat a lot better, which will be really good with towing. I've got extreme pads, the Power Stop Extreme, severe duty truck and tow brake pads, so it'll be good for towing. It'll also deal with some of that heat for any time that I'm maybe driving it a little hard, especially with some of the performance modifications that are also coming very soon for the truck. I've got all the parts already, so hopefully I'll be getting them done really quickly here. So it took me a while to actually piece together the whole kit because everything is a nightmare right now to get parts. So I actually ended up buying parts from Summit Racing, and I think Amazon is where the Power Stop rear stuff came from. So all the SS calipers that are powder coated red, drilled and slotted rotors, those are Power Stop. And obviously the pads that we just talked about. For the front stuff, I had to go between Summit Racing and Car ID, and just happened to luck out and find the parts when they just got a few of them in, and I was able to grab them and got everything I needed. So I was finally able to piece everything together. And then Summit Racing, I bought the VHT high temp paint, which if you guys watched that video, you've seen that already, to paint match those front calipers because no one had them. So I had to buy them bare. So I had to paint match them red. It's not a perfect match, but I don't really care. It's not a big deal. And also they're not right next to each other. Obviously they're front and rear. So hopefully it won't be even noticeable at all. We'll see. So I'm gonna start rearranging vehicles, and we'll back the truck in and get going on the rear. So before we go any further, I want to show you guys the comparison between the two rotors. I'm not going to put the new rotor on yet because I want to swap out the braided brake lines and get all the kind of fluid stuff dealt with before I put the rotor on. So I'm going to deal with that first, but I do want to show you the difference between these two. So there's clearly a large difference in diameter, or in the width there, and how much or how large those cooling vanes are in the center of it. There's a massive difference there, and as far as diameter, they are actually slightly larger as well. I'll get an exact measurement here. So on this one, we actually got a 13-inch rotor, so that's a pretty big rear rotor. And on the one that we are taking off, almost 13, so 12 3/4. So we're actually getting a little bit of diameter as well. Not massively, but we're getting a lot more clamping force with the new caliper setup. These rotors are warped, so it was time to do this anyway, but I wanted to upgrade while I was doing it. So I've got my line wrenches. I'll try to get that brake line off. Got the old line off. I've got the new stainless braided line. I'm going to attach that to the new caliper. I've got the new caliper sitting here next to me. So this is the crusty old single piston caliper, just a tiny little thing that's coming off. And this is the dual piston caliper that's going on. It's a lot bigger. So I'm excited to see how this does. So the new calipers and the new lines came with all new hardware, including copper gaskets for the caliper, but the brake lines came with these gaskets. They're not copper, probably aluminum. I'm gonna use the aluminum ones, even though I've always used copper ones. It might be required for these lines to use these. Maybe they're a little softer or something, I don't know. So I'm gonna use these ones just in case. And for any of you that have maybe never replaced brake lines before, or brake calipers or an axle swab, anything that you've had to do brake work, and you've had to actually put this all back together, you actually need 2 of these little gaskets for each caliper, because you need to put one on the underside and one on the top side of these eyelets. So you grab your bolt, you make sure that you've got one gasket on there, you can stick it through, and then you have the other gasket on the other side of the bolt. That makes sure it doesn't leak from either side. I'm actually gonna put at least one of these bolts in while I attach the line, because I don't want this caliper to drop on the ground. And right now, it's not attached to anything. I just need to do it all over again on this side. Well guys, that's it for tonight. Finished up the rear. Obviously I still need to bleed both sides, but I'm gonna bleed all 4 at the same time. But I'm gonna call it a night. It's pretty late. I don't wanna make too much noise anymore. But I'll let you guys see these before I sign off for the night. You look really good behind there, so you guys take a look. It's a little dark, so it's a little hard to see, but you can kind of see the red there poking out a little bit farther back, but the front ones will be much further forward, so they'll show a lot more. Well guys, we are back at it onto the front now. We've got the truck obviously turned around. Got it back in the garage here. I'm ready to start on the fronts. The only thing that's a little different about the front, obviously, I mean, we're going to a fixed caliper, but we do need to use a small spacer. It's just a washer on the back side to space the caliper back slightly, just to center the rotor on that caliper. So we'll get the stock stuff all pulled off and we'll get the new stuff on. Here's a comparison for you guys. With the front rotors, so appears to be a big difference there. So definitely wider, much thicker with the one that's getting replaced with, and diameter. This front looks smaller than the rear, which is weird. So we've got 12 inches on that front rotor, and we were 12.75 on the rear, so that's really strange. But tiny little front rotor, which I am glad is now going recycling. And what we're replacing it with, this behemoth, we are 13. So we are now 13 inch on the front rotor and 13 inch on the rear rotor, with a lot more caliper on both. So a lot more clamping force.
Minnie doesn't like me right now.
Why?
Every once in a while, I don't know if it's an electrical issue, likes to throw out a random misfire code and run like crap for a few seconds.
And then just goes back to normal?
Yep. So I've learned to just ignore it. If it's running bad enough, I just turn it off and restart it.
I'll show you.
Yeah.
There we go. I'll just start over.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay.
Ow, bitch. You're probably using the wrong one. That makes sense.
What you're saying is you're the problem.
Uh-huh. Usually. You gotta be used to that by now.
There's some big, sexy brakes.
Mm-hmm. All kinds of more brake.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
You need that when you put a supercharger on there, right?
Or turbo.
Turbo.
I'm not picky.
A little less work with the supercharger. A little more power with the turbo.
I like power.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually took 3 of the spacers, top and bottom, to space it out correctly. Which is, I guess, good to know if you guys are doing it. Which, if there is a kit, it probably comes with a kit with a spacer that's the right width, where I just used washers, and just the standard washer width was not enough, so I had to use 3 of them. But it's on there, it's torqued down, should be good. I'll get the wheel back on, we'll start on the other side. last thing we have left to do is third brake line, or technically a fifth, I guess, but third in the rear. There is a center brake line that I need to detach that one and attach that guy. So we'll get that one undone. We'll throw this on.
Closed. Get inside and like transfer over to my elevator chairs. Bunch of sockets and all sorts of stuff fall out of the freaking out of the side of my. Yep. Closed.
I don't know how well you guys can see me. It's kind of dark in here, but also I think I broke the mount, so you guys aren't really being held still. But I'm out driving around and bedding these brakes in. So if any of you have ever done brakes before, you're supposed to do about a 45 to 10 mile per hour aggressive stops, and then you're supposed to do a few less aggressive stops from about 30 to 5 or 30 to 10 miles per hour, something like that, just to bed the brakes in. And you're trying to get them really hot and bed them in properly. You don't want to stop all the way, because there is a chance that if you stop all the way, you might actually imprint the brake pad onto the rotor. You don't want to do that. So just out driving around trying to get these bedded in. And after you get them really hot, you are supposed to drive around for about 5 minutes. And I'm at a light here. I'm trying to creep up to it because I don't want to stop all the way. Wait for it to turn green. There it goes. So just gonna drive around and get these brakes nice and hot. I haven't smashed the brake fully yet because I'm trying to actually break these in. But from what I've done, like obviously there's a lot more brake, but there's a lot more braking power, and I haven't slammed the brakes yet. So I mentioned to you guys already that part of the reason for the brakes, obviously I tow with the truck, so better braking for towing is good, but I've got some pretty significant power improvements coming very soon. So having some more brake to help out with those, with slowing down those power improvements, will be really nice. So if you guys haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We will have some more Silverado content coming for you very soon.